Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very happy to have you guys be part of this conversation. What I want us to talk about today is two things, and maybe the conversation can build up from there. One of the first things is I want to address the seemingly increase in consciousness and longing of our people. When I say our people, I mean Africans. Um, I'm very active on social media, and I've noticed that people are increasingly asking questions of it's time for us to kind of go back to our ancestry, lean back into our spirituality, go back to the ways of our ancestors, the ways of living. This is something that I've been very passionate about. This is something that sort of, led to the birth of Afromanjaro as a project. And so you can imagine my joy seeing such conversations happening online. So the first thing I want to talk about is how important that is, why that is timely, right? Because it's also timely. And then what do you guys think has informed this sort of rise in consciousness? Madam Susie, you can unmute your mic. We've invited you to this conversation because we've noticed that you are part of the community, part of the people who have expressed passion about returning to our ways, about honoring our ancestors, about really finding ourselves and getting back to our true identity. That's why you're a panelist on this conversation, because we know you have a lot of value to add. So maybe start with introducing yourself and why you are passionate about that, why you do think that these conversations are important and timely. And then we'll move to Lanre. Did you get that?
Yeah, I did. Okay, so hello. My name is Madam Susie is actually my art moniker. I'm an artist actually. If you scroll all the way down on my page, you get to see my artworks and stuff. My names are Demalade Ifato Nyaran. So Ifato Nyaran means Ifa is worthy to be proud of. So yeah, that was my name for my Ifa initiation. So I answered to that now. I made like all my family members, start calling me that because that's the name that fits my current reality. On the issue of the current thing going on online, even physically everywhere, it's like there's this huge awakening, especially in Africa, like you said earlier. And it's actually beautiful to see because I feel like as Africans we're very, should I say, docile race. Like not really docile. It's just we've let so much slide for so long as the peoples. I know we have really weird leaders. I know I'm not trying to say they're wicked or anything, but like weird. I think weird kind of like encompasses it in the sense that they could actually still push for, you know, a generalized sense of identity whilst they still loot our funds or do whatever it is, where it's like they don't even care because there's no reason why IFA shouldn't be part of the school curriculum in South West Nigeria, like since all of these years. And like so I can like like I'm even guessing majority of the leaders forget they're claiming Christianity or Islam. Like they're really deep into like traditional like stuff. So it's like they benefit from it, but like they pretend like they don't, and they don't like support people that are trying to like push for inclusion. Because trust me, there's been a lot of like push for, even in history, just basic Yoruba history to be taught in Southwest. Like they've been pushing. I don't know why the government has not accepted for decades now. So a lot of people don't actually know that these moves are actually being made like on the background. So that's why you see people coming online saying, "Oh, what are the Iyanifas doing? What are the Babalawos doing?" And like being Iyanifa or Babalawo, there's actually a limit to what we can do when it comes to like political stuff, when it comes to things that um are I don't have the right words, but like when it comes to like things on public opinion, because the role of an Iyanifa or Babalawo, you have to be as neutral as possible. So we're like Switzerland, where you can't really take sides. That's why you can't really find a Babalawo, an active Babalawo in politics. It's a very sacred role. So you have to, be very neutral, be very you can't be judgmental, in so many things. So that actually kind of like limits the way we can be part of like these conversations, especially when it comes to like public opinions and stuff. Because trust me, in as much as I don't like people speaking bad against tradition as a whole, African spirituality of all Nigerian tribes and all, someone can literally say something bad and say Ifa is rubbish and Ifa is evil on the tail right now. And if they come to me like the next hour for help, even after I saw that, like I cannot turn my back against them. That is what it means to be a true Yanifa. So I don't like my personal opinions do not matter in the grand scheme of things because it's actually a taboo. So try to now like impute that into like the grand conversation. I've had to help like a lot of people that have actually just insulted, especially on that Twitter, trust me. Like they will insult you on TL and they're like on that Twitter and like they're like saying bad things about these ones are bad, they're evil and all. But bro, I can't even share our DMs because it's always paining me. It's like, look at this person, like you're speaking very bad about this thing. Like I literally did the divination for you last week, like but we say something, we will learn our own worries, like we can't come out and share the secrets. And just have to just swallow my anger and be like, let me just go offline before I go type something I'm not supposed to type. So that's I'm just trying to explain to you, the intricacies of
Okay.
it and all. And that's why I'm really excited that I'm now seeing the masses actually being the ones starting up these conversations, and then we can now, join in the conversations. So that way it's like I'm not trying to be an activist or someone is saying, oh, okay, the reason why I'm coming up with these conversations right now is because you're trying to convert people to Isheshe, you're trying to change now. Because we don't do evangelism, we are not trying to convert anybody to follow us. So you will not really find us like preaching and all. The highest thing you see is, subtle campaigns, like the issue is not Satan campaign that's been going on for, a very long time now. Because we're trying to make people understand that like issue is not, actually Satan. You get. So those are like the little subtle things we can do. So you will not find me just barging into someone's DMs and saying, oh, you said this thing about Ifa on the TL, so now I'm here to change your mind and I'm here to preach to you. Nah, 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 like none of that. You get. So I guess that in itself has contributed to this slow development, this slow acceptance of people. Hopefully like the right people will wake up at the right time. That's like the belief that we have. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you. You broke up for a little bit there, but it didn't. We were able to understand everything you said, so
Oh,
it
okay.
didn't disrupt
So
it
that's
much.
yeah, that's the belief we have. And like from like my own perspective, and if I'm allowed to say on behalf of like the, Isheshe community, we really love to see these conversations. We love to see people actually asking questions and, trying to like gain understanding and clarity on so many topics that have been brushed like to the like brushed away over the decades and over the years. Like it was really nice seeing there's this post that went viral like 2 days ago of like the Iyami Oshironga. It took for a Brazilian person to make a whole thread on Iyami Oshironga for it to go viral and all. And trust me, there's been a lot of babalawos that have done that on the same Twitter, and like people go under those posts and like just say a bunch of rubbish, and it's like maybe maybe like the fact that like people from diaspora are really embracing this culture and really pushing it is actually going to help our own people wake up more, because it's like the whites worshipping thing that the Africans have is going to kind of be at an advantage to us, like kind of like for the first time. So yeah, there's like cheers to more people from other races embracing African spirituality. So maybe our normal people that speak against it confirms them into it's been like the norm and being good, because it was really great to see, because trust me, like people that were on that thread talking, I'm like, bro, I still saw you last week, you were still saying rubbish or detail about traditional stuff, and now you're under this person's Twitter, you're pretending like you are just an avid lover of the army and like you speak to them every day and all of those things. And I'm like, yeah. So we just have to look at positives, and just try to not let the negatives affect us. That's what the Sheshe community has been doing for like the longest time. And I really hope like this momentum that we have online, kind of like spills more into the physical, and we get to like have more progress, because we've been having lots of like of our musicians now in Nigeria coming out to say, okay, yes, like nice. I think Vector, one other like popular rapper or something, they've been coming out to say, okay, yes, I'm a traditionalist, yes, I'm a babalao, and I really hope to see more of that. So that would actually help a lot of young people that are having this identity crisis type of thing. They're having a lot of questions. They'll feel more comfortable asking the questions, and like hopefully they get to understand why. Because it's not like, oh, you must practice African spirituality or practice African religion, but at least the young generation getting to understand like what it is that they have is like the basic thing. So it's not so much as saying we're trying to convert anybody or anything. It's just, okay, understand that this thing is this thing and it's not evil. Understand that your ancestors are not evil. Understand that your tradition is not evil. And then maybe that way you feel more proud of it. So whether you choose to be a Christian after all that, or a Muslim or a Buddhist or anything, you just understand that where you're coming from is not evil. And that's the basic thing. That's what is needed. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was gonna ask when you were talking, what because you said it pretty fast. What post were you talking about? What post were you talking about that went viral 2 days ago?
I can't I don't know how the person doesn't have a pronounceable Twitter handle actually, but
Okay, no,
I
but yeah, but
sent it.
what idea was the person talking about? What idea?
The person was talking about how I think a Brazilian musician like
Hmm.
um did a very short rendition for the Iyami Oshorunga. Like they featured like the concept. The person used the concept of Iyami Oshorunga in a song video.
Okay, okay.
Of the
Yeah,
Iyami
I
Oshorunga.
when okay. Yeah, when you spoke about that, one of the first things that came to mind is just how much Brazilians actually uphold and carry the Isheshe and Ifa spirituality on their head. It was a very, I think humbling is the right word. It was a very humbling experience to witness that when I went to Brazil. I lived in Brazil for a few months, and in Brazil was the first time ever that I ever saw Ifa beads. you know, and the thing is that everybody was practicing it. So it's not only people that have our skin color. You understand? It's the mixed ones. And you've gone any Uber, you will see the Ifa beads hanging from their mirror. You understand? And it's clear that a lot of them held on tightly to that tradition because it's the only thing that sort of connects them to home. There's a lot of Christian Brazilians there as well, but the amount of Brazilians who are holding on to African spirituality are a lot. Even the Yoruba language, the way they speak it with pride. I know that it's not the same exact dialect. Of course, they have like their own dialect, but they've done so much work over the years to sustain and maintain their Yoruba heritage in spirituality, in language, and even down to what they eat. So I thought that was a very, very powerful thing to witness when I went to Brazil. I was kind of like, wow, look at these people doing these things. But then the average Yoruba diasporan would think of this as backwards or, you know, not no, they don't think of it as something that should be practiced in its fullness and practice also with pride, which is another thing about the Brazilians. They carry that thing on their head, number one, but they're also very, very proud of it, extremely proud of it. You understand? So it's a really beautiful thing to witness. Okay, Larry, let's hear from you. Go ahead.
Hey, Sammy, how's it going today? Uh, Madam
Good.
Susie, it's very nice to have you here. Me and you have had several conversations, so yeah, that's not even what we're going to talk about here. But yeah, me and Madam Susie talk about a lot of things about uh, our spirituality and how we are how. So I mean, the way me and Sammy have been always been talking about this for the longest. I think the the white man was successful turning us against the belief that I've worked for us for decades, because they, first of all, they saw us as black, and to them, black means dirty. That's number one. So we have to understand that. So the way we were revered our rishas, they perceived that as dirty as well. So when they brought something that was quoted, there's like the skin color, the whiteness. They build a church, then they paint it like white. They wear white to the church, and everybody started thinking, oh, maybe when you wear white, maybe that means you're clean, right? That was what happened to my grandma, and Semi know about this. My grandmother, my grandpa was was it was an hunter. It was like a very big hunter back in my hometown back in the day, and my grandmother um, was a herbalist, and she had all this knowledge for so long. And when Christianity came, both her and my grandpa actually burnt all of their accounts. So everything they had that had the the account of what they used to do, how they used to heal people of their ailments, everything was burnt down, and they both became Christians. So my grandmother actually built the first renowned church in my hometown in Modakeke, in Oshu State. So um, it's something that I wished I never knew my grandmother. My grandmother died about 2 years before I was born. So I wish I knew her before she became a Christian, so I could know everything about what she knew, and I can have all her accounts. Because by now I would have, I would know more about my ancestries and how I can connect back to, my lineage. But it is what it is. But just like you were saying earlier, Semi and Madame Suzie, um, people are waking up. People are actually waking up, and it's very, it makes me very happy to see that a lot of people are coming online to talk about what they have found out about Abrahamic religions. I was actually raised in both Islamic and Christianity household, because my dad is a Muslim, my mom was a Christian for the longest. So I grew up learning both ways. So one of the things that is problem for our people right now is the shame to come online and say, "Oh, you know what? I don't really subscribe to this anymore." Because if you're not Muslim or you're not Christian, where we come from, then that means you're worshiping the devil. That's just what it is. And um, I need to do more research about this, but for some strange reason, Samuel Ajayi Crowder, the man that translated the Bible to the English Bible to Yoruba, he did something, actually translating devil to Eshu, which was already an Orisha the Yoruba had. And for some strange reason, and nobody knows till now, but we understand where that was coming from. It linked that to being the devil. And since it linked the first Orisha to that, it was easier for them to actually say, oh, everything you were doing, that means you're just worshiping the devil. They're able to swear at people. They're able to get them to relinquish all their knowledge that was passed down from generations and centuries of knowledge and worshiping the Orishas. And the things that were working for us as Yoruba people, I'm not going to speak on the other parts of Nigeria because I don't really know their history as much. So I'm talking about what I know about the Yoruba people, and they were able to conquer us because they found a way to demonize our culture, our heritage, the knowledge has been passed down for centuries. The Portuguese came to Nigeria and they found that we already had the hierarchy. We already had we already had society. Our society was thriving. They didn't even need to bring themselves to what we had going on. We were still going to get to where we are today, or even way better, because we would have been able to keep believing what we used to believe, and would have been able to build our culture on that. But now, when they came, we had to abandon everything we already had and adopt a new way of life, and that's what colonization is. So we became Christians, we became Muslims, we abandoned a lot of things that we were. Even the people that are still practicing Isashi, a lot of the people that are practicing Isashi today came from a long line of people that are practicing that, but along the way, a lot of them still have like Muslim names, they have Arabic names, they have Christian names, because along the line, a part of their family became Christians, part of their family became Muslims. So it's so nice to see the revival that's going on online right now, and just hope it keeps going on, and we can not go back to where we used to be, but improve on where we used to be, and preach this to the rest of the world, just like the Brazilians, the Cubans, and the Trinidadians are doing. And we can just, we can be ourselves. We don't have to like fake for people, because we're craving this acceptance from the Western world. We don't want to look like, oh, we're worshiping the devil. Who cares? So
They want to look.
yeah.
They want to look like bush people. They don't want to be.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't want to be seen as being fetish. That's a word, fetish. I was like,
Yes, it's ma'am.
what the hell
Absolutely.
does that mean? It's like, that's so fetish. Yeah. Okay, so now, actually, before we get into the main questions that I wanted us to kind of dissect and explore in this conversation, I wanted to start off by talking about how, of course, we know that these Abrahamic religions, these alternate spiritualities, I can't even call I can't call Christianity and Islam spiritualities. To me, they're religions, and more than religions, they are institutions. You understand? So before these religious institutions came to replace our native spiritualities, our spiritualities that were indigenous to our people, we obviously had our own beliefs, ways that we talked to our ancestors, right? And then colonialism disrupted that. So we know that colonialism was part of the problem, but also, what are the other societal disruptors that sustained this understanding of our spiritualities as backward, as dark magic? You know that there's a way in which words sort of shape experiences. So if you keep referring to something as dark magic, the attribution tied to darkness is obviously, evil, right? So if you call something like voodoo, dark magic, fetish, right? So what are the ways in which what do you guys think were some of the reasons, societal reasons, that sustained these understandings of our spiritualities? One such reason that came up in the TL recently was Nollywood. Yeah, because, and I'm going to talk about my own experience. So growing up, I watched a lot of Nollywood movies on YouTube. And in the Nollywood movies, there was always this like repetitive storyline where the person who was, that goes to the native doctor. First of all, native doctors were always bad people, because native doctors were always doing juju to kill, hurt, or make somebody's body parts swell up where they die, or whatever, give you leprosy or whatever. So my introduction to native doctors was that of like, oh, these are bad people. Whatever is happening in that shrine is for evil. It can never be for good. It can never be for prosperity. It can never be for anything that is good, right? Okay. Then also, if you notice in the storylines, I'm sure you guys noticed, but I'm just talking about my experience. What I noticed in the storylines also was anybody that was practicing African spirituality was always conquered, and they were always conquered by the priest, or the pastor will come and start speaking in tongues, and all of a sudden this person will start lighting on fire, like, disappear or something like that. I think the point is that Christianity always trumped African spirituality. And I'm going to obviously put a disclaimer out there that the type of African spirituality portrayed in Hollywood movies obviously not correct, because it was always portrayed in a negative lens. It was always portrayed as evil, right? But nonetheless, Christianity always trumped it. Once you gave your life to Christ, once you became born again, and you became anew, you became, good, you became of God, right? So aside from, you guys can obviously talk more about the Nollywood movies and how it helped sustain these understandings. And it actually did a lot of damage, especially to young minds watching it. But also other societal disruptors that you guys have found in your lived experience that tend to sustain this narrative of our spiritualities as evil. Okay, Madam Susie, got the floor.
A lot in schools too. Schools,
You said
schools
schools?
that
Okay.
talk. So I still talked about wanting to see a day where Ifa, or even just Yoruba history is taught in schools, like just pure undiluted Yoruba history. So not the white people perspective, like our own stories, our own perspective. So in schools then they have CRS and IRS, classes and stuff, and like those teachers actually have a lot of vitriol to spew in direction of traditionalists, especially Yoruba spirituality, because it's always like, oh, something is a babalawo, kiniko. And the thing is, most of these people, or I came to realize when I started my own journey, was there's so much misconceptions, there's so much negativity, and it all comes from a place of not knowing, and there's this common saying where it's like people are scared of what they don't know or what they don't understand, and like it shows so much in the in the Nigerian the general Nigerian demeanor towards traditional stuff. So it's not even right now where people have access to the internet, a lot of people have phones and all of that, they still won't pick up their phones to try to do research, because they don't actually care to know. All they just want to do is to just talk down on, African spirituality, talk down on Ifa, talk down on our experiences and all. And then other examples is like we have the religious institutions too. So in churches and all, so we used to have songs like Agbare Shuda, Nibiti Jesu Wage, but like those were like, because I was raised in a Christian, it was like I used to ask questions. It's like, why? Like, is it a competition? Why the thing calling boo and like, do you understand? And me, I was always a very inquisitive person, like, and I try to read, coming from like a kid's perspective, it's like, why are you, if God is so powerful, why do you have to sing songs to, like, why do you care about these so-called smaller entities so much so that you're composing songs for them? Like, are you here to drop these tracks, or you're here to learn and find your way to heaven? That was an actual conversation I had one time. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So, and when it comes to like shaping the mind, when the media is already publishing negativity towards something, and like the parents, through the churches are already publishing, like they're also like pushing the child's mind towards that too, and then you see the teachers that also like the external or mind builders to also doing that. It leaves just a very very small room for people to actually see things in a different light, because it's like the TV that's supposed to be the entertainment escape from reality, is also telling you that this thing is bad, this thing is evil. And like your real life experiences too is also telling you that. So that's why I don't really look down or don't even really get angry at people that say things from a very uninformed point of view. Because for me to get to this point, I had to ask questions, I had to do research, I had to travel a lot. So like trust me, I've traveled a lot, especially in Southwest, very dangerous trips because there's some places that buses don't get to where you take bike, going to like the villages to just, experience, ask questions because it wasn't just, oh, okay, magically, yeah, I'm trying to be my most authentic Yoruba woman self, and it's like, let me just go and buy Ifa beads and start wearing them. No, in the beginning of my journey, it was like I was always against it. It's like, okay, this is what I know, and like I just want to get stuff my chest, and like this thing that they said is bad. Let me try and look for proof that it's actually bad, that's actually evil. So you see me asking questions. I'm sitting in the midst of babalawos and I'm asking them directly, have you cut somebody's head off before? Like, those things like that. And I think that's one of the things that really made teachers, like the teachers I met in the beginning of my journey, what really made a lot of them like me. Because it's like, "Tani omo, you going to okay, anybody." It's like I was not scared, to ask questions. I wasn't scared to speak from my own perspective. So whenever I learned something new, I always try to like ask more questions, to try to expatiate. And that really helped my development and my journey, to move very fast. Because a lot of people that I met, like I still had someone have a shock like last week when I told them like my father is not a babalawo. Do you know this? And they're like, he's a lie, it's not possible, how can you tell me you were a Christian? I'm like, I did Bible college, my nigga. Like I really went through all of that. I've read Bible from cover to cover so many times, and I had to go on my own personal journey to learn things. My mother right now is a pastor. When I say she's a pastor, like she's a pastor, and all of that. So
How
I'm
is
like, oh
that?
wow, yes,
How
yes.
is that going?
Like,
Wow.
I mean, my mom is really cool. Like, growing up, I actually grew up in a very liberal family. I'm a Lagos indigenous, so it's not like I grew up in this very, very traditional home where they say, okay, you can't speak up or your parents are speaking, shut up, don't say anything kind of thing. Nah. So right from time I've always been allowed to ask questions, and growing up I used to hate it because my dad used this thing where when you do something bad, there's always like a family panel. So you come and explain. That's why there's no way I can't get to and I will not be able to talk because like since I was a kid, like 6, 7 years old, I had to face my parents. So they'll ask you questions. It's like, okay, why did this thing explain? I'm not going to beat you. Just tell me why. And imagine as a kid where you don't even have all the words to explain and like you start crying and like you start looking like very, very, very foolish. So since when I was little, I've had to learn how to be a good orator. So I think like that in itself, like that trait that my parents helped me train, that they trained that trait in me actually helped me in my journey to be who I am today. And when I told them that okay, this and this is what I'm trying to like go into trying to learn, and they're like, oh yeah, we're not surprised because since you really too you've always like plants. My grandma used to have this yalagbos, and I'm asking them question like, what did you put inside this one? I want to know. And they're like, if I tell you, you cannot even recognize the part. I'm like, still tell me, you know. And in my bloodline, like Mr. Lanre said earlier, there are bloodlines where like there's like breaks in transmissions where maybe the grandparents the converted and stuff, and like it's like a pause and it continues. So that's kind of like what happened with me. So because since I was little, I've always had like these weird dreams and stuff. So I didn't even know my grandmom already, like this the whole thing where they already told her that she was going to have like a kid that was like a mother, because my great grandmother was a healer, right? So she thought it was going to be one of her direct children, not knowing it was going to be like a grandchild. So like and my grandma was very, very spiritual. Of blessed memory, actually, she died 2 weeks ago. Like she was always very, very open. She was an English teacher. So those are also like part of the things that made our generations and some of these our parents change, because she told me stories of how when the missionaries came to a village and they were trying to like share jobs, even if you're educated, like it's like you have to convert and be a Christian, and like they had to do baptism and get new names before they can be employed by these missionary schools, because if you're not a Christian you cannot teach at the missionary schools. So it was tied to survival for some of our grandparents, to convert.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
Madam Susie, you are absolutely right about that because I remember the stories from that, from my mom. So, Madam Susie knows my mom's name, but that name was changed to Elizabeth when her mom became Christian. You understand? So, my mom answered to a name that was not even given to her at birth for so long. That was not the name that was given to her at birth. She ditched that name to the name that her mother, when her mother became Christian, to the name they gave her when she got baptized. So she changed from this very rich Yoruba name into being Elizabeth. So, and that was her name for so long until, I mean, she still had the Yoruba name, but she never referred to herself as that name for a very, very long time. So, and then she got married to my dad and she became, from being a Christian for so long, she became a Muslim because my dad was a Muslim. Well, he's still a Muslim. So, about 30 years after they got married. So she changed from that name to uh Arabic name. So you understand what I'm saying? So that's like, okay, now you're you're going from your basic Yoruba name to this Christian name and to the Arabic name. So which is, a whole thing. But I totally understand what Madam Susie's talking about. I come from that kind of family. And I tell people like my family is like before liberalism became a big word. And I always tell people the Yoruba people of Nigeria has always been very liberal. I don't know how much you know about the history of the Yorubas, Semi, but there's never been any time in the history of the Yorubas where women were pushed to the side. Never ever. In fact, women, and that's one of the things that I think it was one of the pictures that you commented on. Madam Susie, let me know if I'm wrong. Do you remember that picture that Madam Susie quoted with the birds, the black, white, and red birds?
Yeah, that's the post on EMU
Yeah,
that I was
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the post that she was talking. When a Yoruba person say Yami, that means my mother. And the mother does not just mean in the sense of you gave birth to me. It's in the sense of that you are our mother, like you were the godmother to everybody. The Yoruba people has never been known for being any sort of misogynistic or not. The women in the Yoruba culture has always been involved in everything from, I mean, it's so crazy because it still goes back to the women warriors of the Dahomey. Those are like a lot of them are Yoruba women. You understand what I'm saying? Because they were raised to be warriors. Yoruba women has always been a part of the decision making in the Yoruba society. So I think the Yoruba people were introduced to whatever misogyny or patriarchy meant when the white people got to Yoruba land. We didn't know what that was because everybody was good. The society was thriving at that point, but they had to bring something in. All the knowledge that had been passed down from my great grandparents to my grandparents, all those things were burnt to ashes. Those knowledge for centuries that have been passed down, they're all lost now. So it's now left for us to start, digging back up to see where we are supposed to be now. Because if we had all that knowledge, we could have improved on that, and maybe we're not going to be where we are today. And I remember back in the day when I was, and I'm talking about as far back as in 1994, 1995. That's when I was in like primary five or something like that. when we started doing the orishas in the Yoruba land, right? And one of the things that my teacher told me back in the day, I know I was a young child. And you've been indoctrinated into this Abrahamic religion where you think the Orisha itself. When you hear somebody say Orisha, you already in your mind is evil. You know, even though you're learning the Yoruba language, they're teaching you these things about your language, about your lineage. You're still thinking because you're a Muslim, you're a Christian. You're not. Your mind is not really open to hear about that. But one of the things that I actually remember from way back in the day was that my teacher was I don't remember his name. His name come to me once in a while, but I don't remember right now. He was a Christian too, but he said something which made me understand that even though he was a Christian, he understood the Yoruba spirituality, and he said the concept of Olodumare, which is this superior being. The Yoruba people believe this being is so magnificent, like is completely out of your imagination. You cannot even, you were so unworthy to talk directly to this person. There's no way, because he is so great that you have to talk to the Orishas to get to him, basically. So, and he said that was what the Orishas were, because they knew how to, they were like the people that are closer or understood this magnificent being that the regular people just cannot talk to, because it's such a different realm to everybody else. So when the Abrahamic religion came, they were not telling us something that we don't already know. We already know that there is a supreme being that is so great. We knew that, but they just had to let us know that everybody else, the Orishas that would believe, can get our message to this person. They're evil, so they can bring in their own, their own gospel, and just derail us and give us whatever they want to, and actually clog our mind with the things that don't align with our culture, basically. So
Yeah, yeah. First of all, Madam Susie, I'm so sorry to hear about your grandma. That's kind of recent, and it sounds like she meant a lot to you. So I know that she's resting in peace. So yeah, Madam Susie talked about curriculum, which is very interesting because school is, especially, well, you go to school as a young child, you attend school in the portion of your life where you are the most impressionable, where your understanding and your mentality is it's what you learn is most impactful on your understanding of the world, on your views of the world. And Madam Susie had said, you know, curriculum, because in school, we learned CRS and IRS, which I think are acronyms for Christian Religious Studies and Islam or Islamic Religious Studies. And she went further to say that even within those curriculums and those teachings, there was constant attack on traditionalists, constant reminders, constant programming into the children's mind that traditionalism, in terms of traditional spiritualities, are undesirable, are not befitting, are not part of our future. And this is what children are imbibing. And then they go home to parents who belong to one or the other religion. And so this way of life, this understanding is consistently reinforced. On, I don't know what days the Muslims go to the mosque, but of course, every Sunday, you're going to church, and further, that is further, rooted in your understanding of the world. And I think this part of it goes kind of undetected and kind of unquestioned by our parents, right? Because they think they're doing the right thing. They think that they're bringing you up to speed on what is acceptable and what is good, right? That's one. Another thing that she said that caught my attention is that she was a questioning child. So was I. Um, and to my mom's greatest annoyance sometimes. And I would always ask questions like, what is like when you say you're speaking in tongues and you go in the spirit, sure. But if you're gonna speak in tongues and go in the spirit, your tongue should sound different from another person's tongues. So if I'm speaking in tongues, my tongue should be like, I've entered this, I'm in this trance, and my tongue should sound or should not be understood by the next person next to me. But all of you guys will start with robobo. Like, so how come you guys have the same tongues? You understand? So I have many questions like that. And one thing that um made me kind of irreligious is because whenever I ask that, it's like, oh, just because. And it's like, that's not satisfactory. Like, I need to know why. Like, you must explain why to me. And I started to understand Christianity as shrouded in secrecy. Like, there was always a barrier of knowledge. Like, there was a barrier that you could not transcend beyond. Like, if I want a question about an answer to this, you don't know. And it was not only my mom, it was also the pastors as well, people that apparently are the ones that hear directly from God and then translate the message to you. So I couldn't get answers. I couldn't get answers to important questions. And every time it was just because, oh, just have faith, just have faith. And it's like, I need to know what I'm having faith about, right? So I think that, and she also said something also very important, which is she had parents who kind of, parents who nurtured her inquisitive nature, which is something that a lot of African kids don't have the leisure of. You ask two or three questions. If you're not getting a slap, get out. Don't ask me. Why? Because why has a long tail and two branches? They don't really get to inquire from even their parents. So a lot of them just accept and grow up like that. And another thing that you guys have both talked about that makes a lot of sense in terms of how they were able to disrupt the transmission between us and our ancestors. Because any of our elders that passed away are our ancestors. Like right now, Madame Susie's grandma is our ancestor. You understand? And you talked about your own mom, I think your mom or your grandma, who was also forced to change her name. And Madame Susie said something very powerful, which is she was forced to change her name because she wanted to teach at a missionary school. She was changing her name was tied to her survival. No, she just said it like a regular sentence, but that is very, very deep, right? Because your name, and that's another thing that I'm deliberately doing in my adulthood, because I didn't embrace my native name growing up. Because you say your name is Osemo Bor. Oh my God, Osemo Bor? How do you say that? And I immediately get shy. Immediately, like, Omo. When you have a supply teacher and they're going through the students' attendance and they get to your name and you already see them, their faces, they red, they're looking confused. So because of all that, I'm like, oh, just call me Semi. And if there's one thing that I remember that my dad was stood 10 toes down on growing up was that is not your name. That is not the name I gave you. And I'll say, well, but they can't say my name because so if they can pronounce that A in Chinese boy's name, if they can pronounce that German name, they must say your name. You don't change your name. Of course, as grown up, I didn't really listen. I felt like it was just being annoying. At the end of the day, my name is my name on my legal documents. I'm not about to have people choke trying to say my name, And as I grew older, I started to say, no, my name has meaning. The meaning of my name is tied to my identity, the emotions of my parents when they had me. And that is important. That is part of my identity. That is part of who I am. Even in astrology, I'm not super big into astrology, but I do kind of follow astrology because astrology made sense to me than Christianity at some point in my life, the study of the stars and everything. And even in astrology, your name is very important. They'll tell you like every letter of your name is important. It's tied to your identity. It's tied to your life's journey. It's tied to your fate, or it gives you hints about stuff like that. Your name. These colonialists, they knew exactly what they were doing. First of all, if you want to destroy a people, a community, first of all, take their language away. Break their communication. You understand? And that's what they did. That was actually one of the most violent things they did to us. I know people ascribe the actual slave trade as the violence that the colonialists, you know, put on or did to us Africans. But another thing was also destroying our languages, assimilating us into these dichotomous languages, these dominant languages, English. Do you understand? Thereby breaking our communication. There's so many words and so many native words that don't have an English meaning. Like you can't, it loses everything. It loses its power. It loses its meaning once it's translated or loosely translated to something that's English, you know. So imagine forcing someone to let go of their name just to have a means of survival. It's like let go of who you are. And they did that to our grandparents. You see how we almost didn't have a chance. Us sitting right here right now, we are the ones that are saying we do have a chance, we do have agency, and we are going to embrace the ways of our ancestors. But don't even most people don't even know what their real grandparents' traditional names were. These things were not even communicated. It's like, oh, this is how it is now. Do you understand? Now I'm even thinking, why the hell my granddad's name was Dennis? They had English names, and I don't know. They're both dead. I don't know what the hell their native names were because we never talked about that because it wasn't important. Now it's so important to me, and it's like I don't have that link. You understand? So that's why it's increasingly ever important for us, no matter how small we are in number. And I don't believe that smallness number is going to be eternal because, like I said, there is an increasing revival, an increasing, you know, awakening that I see, and people are questioning and asking and inquisitive. That never used to be a thing before. Once you mention anything that just strays away from the religious institutions, all of a sudden people want to start avoiding you. Or if you talk about astrology, oh, I believe in astrology, like they laugh, they mock it. You understand? Because there is no alternative to understand God aside from Christianity and Islam, according to them. You understand? But now things are changing, and I think that change is beautiful. I think that change should be celebrated. I think that change should be talked about more, and that's why I appreciate people like Madame Suzie who make it kind of like her social mission. She takes her time to explain things to people, and educate and inform, which is so important. It's up to us to organize ourselves in a way that we can trace us. Because I feel like a lot of our unhappiness, a lot of people are unhappy, a lot of people are feeling lonely. The sense of community has died. And that's because we don't understand each other and we don't understand ourselves. More importantly than not understanding each other, we don't actually understand ourselves. Because once you understand yourself, you trace your way back and you remember who you are, you're proud. Like, these days, like when I think about my name and who I am as an African woman, I hold my shoulder high. Like, what do you think is driving that curiosity amongst our people? What would, if you were to guess, because we're not in everybody's mind, but if you were to guess, what would you say is a reason or reasons that is driving our people to be more curious about our ancestry, more curious about how our ancestors' ways of life and our spiritualities? What would you say? Anybody can unmute their mic and start.
Okay, so I think, especially for Nigerians, right? I think the reason why that has been really like on the high side in the past few years is because there's been a high influx of Nigerians into other countries. So when you experience racism for the first time, you first ask yourself, who am I? Like, what do you mean? Like, Emitoman Kinigboro, you that all those Egmo Adubo used to like, praise you, and you still want 12-year-old kids just talk to you very rudely. There's a lot of cultural shocks going on across board. And then people are getting to mix with like on the more serious side, people are getting to mix with like more populations, when like speaking about like going to countries now where there's like a high respect for their indigenous stuff, where there's protection for indigenous people. Like in Canada now, I know that you cannot even lie and pretend that you're like, like a native Canadian or something. Like you go to jail. you know. So, and like in, in America too, there's like days to celebrate the indigenous peoples. In Australia, you now get to see a lot of Nigerians going to those places where, especially in Australia, there's this thing they do, the haka, where like they just stop anywhere and like just, start venerating their ancestors and stuff. Even talking about it right now is giving me goosebumps, and those were like part of things. Even me not being there physically, those are when I was researching on indigenous like peoples across the world and stuff like that. The first time I saw a video where they were doing that thing, like the Australians and all, I cried, because it was like, oh, people can actually love their ancestors like this, and like I don't even understand what they're saying. So the layman is like, these people are screaming, but that scream is meaning something in my soul. It's like, and like when people get to experience that, especially Nigerians, like I said, the Nigerians like to farms. So it's like you're trying to now get you into those circles, and they're telling you, no, this is a close practice. Like, you're not part of us. Go and look for your own people. So it's that widespread ella that Nigerians have been getting everywhere. It's also like influencing them, okay, wanting to ask, okay, who am I? And then like things like festivals being more documented, like the Ojude Oba festival now, Eyo festival, things like that. And also, I feel social media has actually helped to amplify voices, so it's like, especially TikTok or things where people actually get to now talk about things where they feel like they can just sit in front of a camera and ask questions. So those questions that they're shy to ask real humans in physical situations, you start seeing like an uptick of people setting their cameras up and asking questions, even if it's not to support traditional stuff, even if it's to like to insult or whatever, and conversations were being had unknowingly, and then there's the whole case of like, like you said, you've always been curious, to the curious minds too. So it's like the heightened level of conversation on the internet too. So the people that are curious now, when you actually now put a like an inquiry into Google online, there's like so many resources now where it's like, okay, it can take you to a conversation that was had like months ago on the tail. I'm very sure like in some people now can like Google a mission or something, and like that tweet that went viral might come up. And when someone sees a tweet like that, and like they're reading through all the comments, reading through stuffs, a lot of people that would actually get to ask more questions just because they came to see that um tweet. And also there's been a whole lot of change in people's perspective, because people get to understand like now, okay, the babalawo that is living in the bush or living where there's a lot of plants, lives there because he needs to be in contact with a lot of plants, because he needs those plants to help people. A lot of those so-called babalawos, they have their offices in those kind of areas, and they have their normal houses where they're living in and living large. Off the top of my head, I don't know any babalawo that is suffering in abject poverty. They have other jobs. Yeah, there are babalawos that's their full-time thing. I have babalawos that are like farmers. I have babalawos that like, I have one that recently got like finished like at the Nigerian bar, like they got their results. He's a lawyer now. So he's a lawyer and he's a practicing babalawo. So things like that. And they too, from like because I'm talking for both sides now, when it comes to the traditional part of things too, a lot of those babalawos too, because they were scared of the missionaries, they were scared of all those things. Some of them actually prevented their children from going to schools, not because they didn't like their children to learn, but because they were trying to protect the knowledge. You're trying to like keep it from being diluted, because imagine a babalawo that is prominent, seeing that they've already made babalabaja's children change all their names, and like now they don't want to learn Ifa again. You just hear things like Eworisha, oh Losi Veyemo, Kiniko. Those were things that were happening then. But now, like, there's not an optic of conservative things now. Those conservative mindsets now are now being relaxed. So it's like, okay, before you can find a babalawo's child in a school in those times, like it was very rare. But now, like, you go to schools and it's like, oh, your dad, my dad is a babalawo. Me too, I'm wearing my Ifa beads everywhere and all of those things. Now you get to see babalawo's kids like being even like like doing their doctorates or whatever it is, because now like they too have reduced, or yeah, they kind of like reduce their level of being conservative. So there's like a mixture from both sides. So it's like, okay, maybe Babalawos are not so evil because my favorite classmate is a Babalawo's child. Like, I've had the conversation with the Babalawo's child before. So maybe they're not so evil. Maybe they don't eat people. Like, she has not tried to eat me. Things like that. Like, people are having more. Seriously, trust me, there are a lot of stupid things that I've heard. Like, it's someone coming up to me and saying, "Oh, do you fly in the night? Are you a witch now? That you a Yanifa?" Like, I've had questions like that. Trust me. Like, it's like, okay, do you go for meeting? Like, describing some Nollywood type of scenario to me, and it's like I'm trying to like educate people. Not everybody has that patience. Trust me. There's some people that are traditionalists that don't even like reverts like me. There's like a slow. They call us reverts, right? They're like they believe that your ancestors were so weak and they converted to Christianity and Islam, and now you're come and stress them, and you're coming back and they're supposed to sit down and be teaching you if I like get out of our house, that kind of thing. There are people that are like that. They're still so conservative that they don't want to see reverts around them because they felt betrayed. It's like when we were trying to fight against these people, my ancestors, and your own ancestors were just so soft and they converted. What do you mean you're now coming back to come and try to learn and get this knowledge? So things like that on both sides, there's just been some kind of like awakening too, because they are also getting awakened to the fact that we can't do this alone. Our numbers are dwindling. We have to like accept more people. So we see a child that was not born to a Babalawo family or not born to an inherently currently traditional family, and they want to learn, take them in, accept them and try to teach them. Trust me, I had to like before I could get like my first like proper teacher, I had to like I went through a lot. Trust me. Like there's now this constraint because like I said in the beginning, there's this constraint of like if I've been something that is shrouded in some level of mysticism. I think that's what made it survive to this point for it to be alive, because the ancestors that actually now stayed and held their ground, they really upheld that concept of awo. Awo is like something that alludes to like secrets, right? So Babalawo is practically like the father of secrets.
I just wanted to add a little bit of
Yeah.
something.
Go ahead,
So,
Lanre.
from your last questions, I think that one of the reasons why people are coming back to the African spirituality, that and this is a worldwide thing. Actually, this is not something that's just happening in the Nigerian, the sphere of the Nigerians. It's not just us. It's the East Africans, it's the Ghanaians, it's the Asians, it's the Jamaicans, it's the Brazilians. It's like I mean, the Brazilians has always been there anyways. The Cubans, they've always been there. But like there's so much visibility now because of the internet, right? And one of the first things that I like saw, because I was a young adult when in 1999 when Obasanjo became the president of Nigeria, right? And I was watching the swearing in. So they did the president first, and then they did the governor. So I think it's about an hour between the president's inauguration and then the governors, because it's the first time in forever where we have independent. We had a democracy in Nigeria, right? So they did the presidents first, and then so I was watching the Obasanjo one, and later I had to watch the Osun State governor one, DC Akade. That was that time, and I was so they asked him. So this is what happens when you were holding a political or something in Nigeria where you have to get sworn in. They only ask you, "Are you a Muslim or a Christian?" They will not ask you if you're a Babalawo or if you do something else. Are you a Muslim or a Christian? So if you're a Muslim, they give you a Quran to swear on. That's what you put your hand on, and you raise your other hand, right? That's how you swear in. If you're a Christian, that's what you do. But they have never asked them to swear on Ogun or Batala or anything like that. Because you know what? These politicians are not going to do that because they're scared. Do you really think Bat Tinubu will put hand on Ogun and say, if I don't provide electricity for Nigeria, let Ogun do blah 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 to my family. No. X, no, he would not do that because he's scared. He's very scared because he knows that is not an Abrahamic God. That is the God that is connected to you, connected to your roots, and they know how to deal with you. So he is not going to do that. And that's what one of the places that I think we should start from. Oh, you are from Anambra somewhere. Oh, whenever you want to get sworn in to be a governor of somewhere, the chairman of the local government somewhere, they need to bring the God, the deity, whatever that is in that the people, the ancient people of that land used to worship, and you have to swear by that to get into that office because you are serving those people that are bored by this ancient, these ancestors, right? So why are you going to swear on an Abrahamic God where you're not about to govern over people of Israel or people of Saudi Arabia or somewhere? So why are you swearing by their God and not swearing by by my ancestors? Do you understand what I'm saying? Those are the things. One of the things that we actually need to start doing. I can tell you right now, if tomorrow in the Constitution of Nigeria, we write there that wherever you are, you have to choose between all these orishas to swear by. If they do that, they will do better at the government because they're scared. They know that it's not going to be the Abrahamic God that's going to wait until you die and then toss you into the endless fire somewhere. Come on, man. That's not going to happen. So that's number one. Number two, we see the people, like I have at least about 5 African-American friends here that are seriously trying to connect back to their roots from wherever it is. They don't even know where they're from. A bunch of them are very apprehensive about trying to do the African ancestry DNA to try to find out where they're from because they like the thought of being from everywhere in Africa, basically. They don't want to root themselves somewhere. They're open hearted to trying to oh my God, I'm from here. I could be from here. I could be from that place. Their hearts are open. So they're thinking about that. And what Madame Suzie said about Haka, the Australian and New Zealander culture, it's sort of like the Oriki in Yoruba. And this is something that is attached to. So we have Oriki Orile, which is where you're from, the city you are from, the town you are from, I don't know, Madam Suzie, if you can help me out with this. How it's like the praises of the ancestors of that land. That is one thing, the Oriki Orile, and the other one, the Oriki of the home. I don't know how to say this.
You were saying Oriki for family. I said Oriki Idile.
Yes,
absolutely. Or Agbole. Yeah. So we have that. So we still have some people that then it was the Akeris and stuff that used to coin those Orikis. Orikis are they're like kind of like, I won't say really musical, but yeah, kind of like musical, melodic, melodic renditions of
praise poetry.
It's like the kind of, it's like that. It's like literally praising you all the way down your ancestral line, and I'm very proud of that. A lot of my people, when they see me, because I sing this to my kids, and when they wake up in the morning and they come here, well, both of them, they don't know what it means because they're used to it now, but they really don't understand what it really means. But when they wake up every morning and they come and say, "Hey, Dad, what's going on?" I still say to them, I still let them know, "Hey, Papalink Bilali Boya being Jararesa Modubi Omerakoyayo. I still say those things to them. And this is like, and I'm very much more invested in it. Even my Orikyo relay, which is I'm from Odakeke, which is like the direct descendant of Oyo people. Those are the little things that I'm very proud of that I learned when I talk to my dad, and sometimes when we talk about little things like this, and I just want to say something nice to him. I just say the Oriki of our family, and it will be all smiles because I've researched and even learn more about this Oriki than my parents know. So even when I say some of those Oriki, they were like, "Where did you hear that from?" I didn't even know that because I had to do my own research and actually learn these things. So yeah, some of the ways how they got into us is the fact that we never really wrote anything down. It was knowledge that was passed down. Sammy, me and you talked about this several times. These are the things that are passed down from one person to another. So when one of these people that are passing this message from one person to another, if any one of them die during that process, all that knowledge is gone if they haven't passed it down to somebody else. So we didn't really have, we had it because that's why I think that's one of the reasons why the Awo, the Babalawo, the Anifas, they have to go from one city to another, from one town to another, from one settlement to another to learn so much about Ifa, because the person that is teaching them this probably does not know everything. So they have to go to another place to learn more, and then they have to travel to the other place to learn more. So, but if we have something like a database, basically, so this could be available for everybody. I mean, not like free, like open source AI or something like that, but you can go to university and actually learn about these things. And you can, and one of the first things I learned a lot about Yoruba culture, especially from Ife culture, when I was taking a course here in the United States. It was crazy, but I learned a lot. And I was from there. My when you my town and Ife is like you from Sango and Lagos. You don't know if you're in Ogun State or in Lagos State, basically, because we are all interwoven. So, but a white woman was teaching me something about where I'm from in non-Western arts. I took that course at the University of Texas here, non-Western arts, and I learned so much about my own culture from a white woman. Do you know how crazy that was? Like, do you know when? And she's an anthropologist, so she's one of those ones that dug stuff up, that tested the soil. She was an Ife. She knows Yoruba. She could speak a little version of it, but we can have about 5 minute conversation. And she was probably about 31 at that time. And she spent about 5 years in Ife. So if people from here, people from Brazil, they can travel back and forth to Nigeria and go learn about our culture, then what happens to us? We're from there. We should know way more. They shouldn't even have to travel down there. We should be enough to, and just like Madam Susie said, we don't do evangelism in Yoruba, in African spirituality. We don't take our belief and try to impose it on other people. We don't do that. But what we can do is we can actually start teaching and making sure that, our people know where they're coming from, and let them know whatever they must have taught us back in the day, that we can do something about it now. We are free. We can do it. We can do anything now. We are not shackled anymore. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah.
Physically, we are free, but a lot of us remain mentally shackled, which is the real issue. So Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. You said a white woman. I was laughing like, oh my God, yeah. But that's because that lady was passionate about, learning about the people of Ife, where she went to study. She went to study it. When you were just talking, when you said that for sure a lot of our traditions are passed orally. But even that oral tradition is now also threatened because a lot of us don't speak our native languages. So that's even the problem. Is double the problem because the people who have these knowledges they are passing on. The younger ones who have learned from them and sustain it, they're not in their numbers. Thankfully, they're increasingly coming to the social media, which is one of the most important tools of mass education if you use it correctly anyway. So yeah, we're getting trinkets of that, which is always appreciated, but there still needs to be, like you said, recording of these knowledges. It's very, 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 and I mean recording, I mean written is very, very important, and that is why I'm doing what I'm doing with the publishing house without going too much into it. Now, why do I think that people are returning? I think that people are returning. I don't say people, I mean Africans as a whole, but I also mean African diaspora, which includes Africans that have migrated to the diaspora and Africans that were that were forcefully migrated to the diaspora, which are for example, African Americans or some of us that are now in the Caribbean, etc., etc. The reason is because I believe that we're feeling lost. I believe that there's a general feeling of just being lost, right? Who am I? Especially because in this day and age, there is a growing nationalist sentiment. So if you're an African in America, for example, America is America. I don't. Canada is kind of like subtle with their nationalist, uh, structures. It's kind of embedded in the system, so you don't really see it. It's not really spoken, but it's felt. Structurally, infrastructure wise, in the job market, etc. But in America, because of Trump, it's also voiced, right? And other European countries here and there. I don't know, is it Finland? I think Finland, they had like some white nationalists, whatever they're doing there. So it's increasingly, everybody is looking for their own home. Everybody is saying, this is my own home. And it's like you guys in the diaspora, it's like, you know where your home is, but do you know much about yourself? Do you know much about do your kids know? Some of the people, the Afghan diaspora are even looking at their children like, if I'm lost, if I'm this lost, what are their chances? Do you understand? A lot of people growing up in the diaspora never been back home. Colonialism destroyed a lot of things as well. Because even those of us that identify as Nigerians, are we really Nigerians? Now, I bought the ancestry DNA because I'm like, you're gonna find out now that yeah, are we generally from that area? Yeah, but we didn't decide like we're tribal. Yeah, you belong to a tribe, you belong to a lineage, a community. But then some white guy, probably, I don't know who his plug was, you know. After that, he just came and just divided Africa like a pie and then just named the different things. That's why, if okay, for example, the people that are doing their ancestry the most are non Africans, for example, Caribbeans, for example, Latinas and Afro Latinos. They do their ancestry, and you notice something when they do their ancestry. You see, they'll be like, oh, 15% Cameroon. That's still in West Africa. They'll be like, 70% Nigerian, right? And that should tell us all we need to know. That should tell us that we are from that general area, right? And it's crazy that it's ancestry DNA that is the reason why we know that. You understand? So I feel there's a general sense of wanting to identify, with your own, with your community, with yourself, wanting to know what it is that the people where you came from value. Because dominant culture will tell you that value is in material things. And because that is not native to you, and no matter where we are in the world, one thing for sure is that we're rooted. You understand? We're rooted. So you don't find pleasure in things that in the Western world they find pleasure in. Yeah, sometimes even when you eat some food, sometimes I feel sad. Okay, when I eat some food like here, and I'm like, oh, if I had the authentic seasoning from Nigeria now, this food will not be so depressing. I know that I sound like a foodie, but in every little aspect of life, you just like, this is not, I'm not supposed to be here. This is not my home. This is not my identity. This is not me. And there's that wanting to know. But then, like you rightly pointed out, where is the information? It's it's kind of like in a vault. It's in certain families are carrying it along, but those families, number one, they're not platformed enough. People are not paying attention to them enough. Also, people don't know where to just go and kind of mine that information. So that is why, some of us who have the knowledge base and the technical skills and the digital skills to create such a forum where these knowledges can live, thrive, and store. Because if you want to store anything now, is in digital, because anybody can go and search whatever. But it's also going to involve us reviving our indigenous languages, because you will never find yourself if you don't connect to your language, because your language is your universe. Your indigenous language, your native language, is in the lens in which your ancestors saw life. Thereby, by default, the lens in which your life will make sense. And so, if we've lost connection to that, we've basically lost connection to blueprints, and that is why a lot of us feel empty. No matter where we are in the world, no matter how successful we are in our careers, no matter whatever. So that's why I think people are returning. I welcome it. I don't actually have knowledge about a lot of my background, which is sad. But what I can do is what I'm doing is I'm contributing my skills to see that, my kids or like other people like me are not lost forever, are not disconnected forever, And another thing that I think as Africans in diaspora we have to imbibe is actually championing causes that aim to protect our knowledges, aim to protect our identities. You understand? And that is something that I hope that all of us can get on collectively, now and also as the future unfolds. So that's my own interpretation of why people are seemingly wanting to come back. And they should come back. They should also understand that we are not these geographical areas that they've confined us to. We are more than that. You understand? We are more than that. And that is why sometimes our words and our languages intersect. Our ways of life, even our indigenous practices intersect with the indigenous practices of, for example, native peoples in the Americas, like Aboriginals, like the Australian Aboriginals, them singing praise to their ancestors. These are things that have survived the violence of colonialism, So it's important that we continue to further that as well. Last and closing remarks from you guys, and and then let me know when we're gonna have this date again. It's been fun. So let's have closing remarks. Larry, you go first because on my screen now you're on this side.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Okay, all right. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you, Semi, as always. Madam Susie, it's very nice having you in this conversation. Me and Semi have had a few of this, and well, we will continue to have this conversation, and like you said, hope more people start joining, and we can make this a community, and people can come here, ask questions, they can come here and learn, and we can connect people from different parts of the world and bring them back to the source of humanity, the source of creation, and we can all, when we started talking. I was coming at it from the architecture perspective, because everything that we're doing, everything is just going to crap. Like trying to do things like the people that we're looking up to, it's not gonna work. It's not this. It's not us. It's not our ancestors actually did something that worked for them. Whether the Europeans came or not, they were going to organically develop into what they were going to develop into. But guess we will never find out, because they invaded us and here we are. So now we have to go back and try to retrace our steps and make sure our future generations don't have to do the same thing we're doing right now. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Susie, closing remarks from you.
It was a really, really nice conversation. Actually, I generally I can say this is actually the first time I'm having this type of recorded, like, proper conversation that's gonna be posted online type thing when it comes to Ifa and stuff. And that's because I generally am a very private person. But Ifa actually, the beginning of this year, asked me to speak more about Ifa, to actually live up to my name. So that's why I've been trying to be more open to having conversations about Ifa, tweeting about Ifa online. And it's like, now my art tweets are not even going viral. Like, I just write something about Ifa and like 100 people are liking it. And if I didn't actually do that in the recent times, I don't think I'll be on this call. I wouldn't have met Mr. Larry or you. And that's something to be grateful about. And going into this conversation, it was at the beginning I wasn't so sure as to what to expect, but seeing how it is something that I'm actually really excited and happy that I actually joined this conversation. And I look forward to more like it, because like you said, in the old times, even till now, like, women are like the voice, we're the ones that actually, the matriarchs that actually pass down information to our kids and whatnot. So I look forward to helping to shape the narratives and helping more people understand what it is to truly, like, go back and try to reconnect with the ancestors, no matter their tribe or what country they're from and everything. Thank you so much for having me. And may Olodumare continue to bless you and all of the Orishas and the Rumales too. Thank you so much.
I'm very happy that all of us could make our time today to connect.